Good morning, options traders, and welcome to the weekend update here on June 23rd, 2024. So the first thing is there are two trades that closed out this week, actually three. One of them was the double calendar that we had done in SPX. Now that trade was only open for 2 days, generated about a 14% return. That is closed out. And then our DJT trade. Now, there's a little bit of an anomaly here I need to get figured out, but remember that was the no-lose butterfly on the DJT company that owns the Truth Social. And that one, depending on how you seesawed out of that, remember I showed how I was seesawing out of that. I ended up at I think it was about a $350 profit or so. But again, I need to, at a bare minimum, if you didn't touch the trade, you should have ended up with about a $100 profit on that trade, even though the market moved hugely against that trade. When we started this butterfly, I think DJT was trading in the 54 area. I think it ended up closing around 27 or something along those lines. So again, small little win, but it was interesting to be able to get into a trade that didn't have any risk of loss in it. And then there was Apple. Of course, Apple got hit. I did do a detailed summary of that Apple trade. So those of you that are part of the alert service here or in the community, make sure that you go to the community. It's down on the lower left side. Look at closed trades. I'm going to move those into the closed trades area, and there's hundreds of closed trades in there. And you can go and replay that trade start to finish. I did a complete video on what I thought went right and what I thought went wrong in that trade that put me at the loss I was at. And there's a couple things I can look back and point to. So it's part of the learning process here, and that's what I want to do as part of this community is I want to share the stuff that goes right, but I want to make sure that we learn from the stuff that goes wrong if there's something to learn. Sometimes trades just go wrong and you did everything right. Apple didn't quite fall into that category. I had the exact right read. I was very bullish on Apple. Apple ended up going from 170 up to 210. But there was a few little things along the way where I zagged, Apple zigged, etc. So again, go take a look at that video. It's right at the top of that entire feed on Apple. Now, the remaining trades that are open. This one, which is I think in a pretty good position right now. It's got a nice wide range on it, should decay fairly heavily this week. I am carrying this closer to expiration than I like to do. We're only 1 week from expiration on this. So again, this is going to decay quickly. This one had a lot of adjustments in it. I'm not going to be looking for any major gains in this. I'm looking largely to mitigate losses in this particular one right now. Maybe I can work it into a little bit of a gain by the end of the week. Again, my goal though is to be a little bit careful because as this mounds up here, the gamma is going to be more significant in this trade, and I have to be aware of that. Then the rut trade, I think this one is looking pretty good. It's got maybe a little more positive delta that I might like on it right now. But again, this one has just a slight amount of negative delta to it. My thought process is to let those two kind of balance each other out. This, of course, is much further to expiration. It's got about 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks left on it. And then the Q trade, which I converted to a no-lose trade. So here, no matter what happens in this trade, if the market rips up 200 points, we're going to have about a $300 profit. If the market tanks, we're going to have I think that's about a $150 profit, somewhere in there. So no matter what happens here, right now, this trade will end up as a profitable trade. And then, of course, there's the wheel trade here, and this is chugging along fine. Now, this symbol, Fortnite, I believe it is, did pull back significantly this week. It had been up, I think, around $60 or so, and then it did drop back here a little ways. But again, the goal here is to sell puts on this until the underlying gets put to me. This doesn't expire until July 19th. So this is just going to hang out there and do its thing, and maybe I'll get a sign, maybe I won't. And if I don't get assigned, I'm going to go out and I'm going to sell another put, take in more premium, waiting to be assigned. That's how that whole wheel process goes. Again, I've done a complete video on the wheel. It's also in the community and with this trade so that people can understand the entire process that I'm looking to go through on that start to finish. So let's take a look at the markets now. So looking at SPX, SPX has continued to be very bullish. Again, we broke out here a week or two ago. My expectation was that we were going to pull back maybe to about this 50% range. This is the one time that I kind of use Fibonacci's in looking at a run that the market has had and then looking at where that might pull back. A 50% retracement is fairly common. We came down almost to 50%. Then we took off again, hit these old highs, chopped sideways, and then decidedly popped through that. Highs, and then a little bit of a pullback here. So this pullback could come back down to this trend line or maybe back to these old highs around the 5,400 range. And that would be normal and expected, a pullback into this 5,400, a pullback into maybe this uptrend line, and then probably a continued rally from there. Now, we are so bullish right now, it may not even do that, what we call backing and filling. Usually the market will come back and attempt to fill a gap like this. And so we'll just have to see. So if it came back, filled that gap, and then took off from there, that would not be abnormal. So SPX still in full-on bullish mode. Let's just take a look at SPY, see if that kind of corroborates the situation for us, and it certainly does. Now, I want you to notice something else here. Look at this uptrend line that was in place for months and months. Then we had this pullback, and now we're rallying up again. Let's just do something here. Let me just take this, duplicate this drawing. My suspicion is that we're essentially on pretty much the exact same trajectory, which we are. We had this little lapse, and now we're back in full uptrend mode, and we're working in a channel. Again, this channel on SPY indicates a pullback is not unreasonable back into this 540-ish range. So a break of that 535 to 540 lower would be something that I would be paying attention to. But a pullback right here to that 540, maybe even a little lower, 536, somewhere in that range, would not be out of character at all for our market at this point. So that's what I'm looking at as I'm looking to potentially set up additional trades or design a new trade, which I do want to do this next week, that's going to take advantage of a specific channel. Now, whether I do that trade in SPX or SPY or possibly RUT, let's take a look at RUT as well. So looking at RUT has just been chopping sideways in a very wide channel. We're right now right smack in the middle of this channel that has been holding almost since the first of the year. I might look at doing something in RUT. We can also see here, the RUT volatility, which is RVX, is significantly higher than the SPX volatility. So that makes it a little bit, sometimes a little bit better reward to risk ratio when that volatility is higher. So that's something I want to keep in mind when I go in and I start to look at what I might want to enter a new trade in. But those of you in the community, stay tuned, and we'll get something new cooking here this week. And if I were to do a RUT trade, it would be a largely neutral trade that would have the ability to swing maybe as high as this 2100 mark or down here to the 1940 mark. That's the range that I want to be able to play in. So that's about a 140 point range. We'll have to look at ways to maybe cover that full range, or at least as much of it as possible. So that's the analysis of our market right at this point. And that's wraps up the weekend update this weekend. Now, next weekend, I am going to be doing some traveling. I'm traveling with kids and grandkids. Going to head up to Park City, Utah, where it's a little cooler. I'll spend a week or so up there. So it'll be a new environment for me to post to you next week, and we'll see what that looks like. So take care, everyone.